Hello, everybody. How are you? I want to welcome you to tonight's special Shift Your Soul webinar. So thank you so much for registering, and thank you so much for joining me here today or evening, whatever. It's early evening here in Southern California, depending on where you are. But as I said, I want to thank you so much for your energy, your time, and coming in here at this time as we're going through, obviously, a lot of changes and a lot of things moving around in life, which is why I like to drop these special events in every once in a while. So before we get going, first, like I said, I want to thank you for being here. I also want to thank those of you who donated to the work, donated to my work. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for that. And I'm really, like I said, I'm dedicated to trying to help everybody move forward in a positive way. The last one of these sessions I did was February 22nd, of course, when we had the big 222 portal. So I like to kind of drop these in as we go forward to help everybody move forward and kind of get us to where we want to go. Like I said, we're going through a lot of changes and a lot of different times right now as we continue our journey to higher energy and vibration. So before we get started, for those of you who know me, you know I like to get right into it. I don't waste time. I'm not a fluff person. I like to get right into the content and make sure I give you value for your time and your energy for being on here with me. So before we do that, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you who don't know me, maybe this is the first time you're hearing me or getting on any of my calls. I know we always have new people jumping on. So I'll give you a real quick snapshot of my background. I've been doing this work for over 30 years right now. When I say this work, personal development, improvement, psychology, energy, metaphysical, whatever you know, all different, obviously, evolutions as you go forward with the work. I'm originally from New York, from Brooklyn. I am currently residing out here in Southern California with my family. So we moved out here in 2011, kind of got into some nice sunshine, but kind of cut my teeth for the most part in New York. And, you know, I've done this, as I said, for a long period of time. I was always very into personal development when I was young, when I was a kid, even, right out of high school, was reading books and listening to tapes and going to seminars about self-improvement, and then moved into psychology, more learning about behavior and how people, human behavior and how your mind works. And then from there, I moved into the energy metaphysical work, started to go deeper in that area, and ended up working with your energy system and I was taught how to clear negative energy out of your chakra system. And then I started to work with others. And this is the work I've been doing for a long period of time. So I've worked with thousands and thousands of people. As I said, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've written 6 books. I have a new book coming out in a few weeks, which is a compilation book. I'm really excited about that. I'll let you all know about that. It's coming out, I believe it's the end of the month. I didn't get the official date, but that'll be out then. So that'll be my 7th book. So like I said, been doing this for a long time. And my goal here is to share with you what I've learned and really share it with you. And I'm not here to force it. I'm here to just share ideas, concepts, and principles with you that have been very helpful for me and for many other people that I've worked with over the years. So all I ask is that you be open to seeing things maybe a little differently. And then I'm going to give you some tools. Because one of the things that's important for me when I do these calls is that I give you usable tools. So not just say, wow, that was nice. It was, it was motivational or whatever you want to call it. I want to make sure that you leave here tonight and say, wow, there's some things I can use from this session that I'll be able to put into my life right away. I'll be able to start using these tools and these things in my life right away to start making changes and move it to a positive direction. And just so that is my goal as we go forward. So before we get started, let me just give you a quick overview of what we'll be doing. So this is being recorded. So I will send this out to everybody later. We're going to render it and then put it up, and then I'll send this out, the link to this recording. I would suggest that a lot of people, of course, email me who register, said, oh, I can't get on live. What can I do? That's why I always record it. So I'll send that recording out later. And I would also encourage you to share this with your friends. If you know people who you think would benefit from this session or this recording, I would ask you to share it with them as well. Also, there's a Q&A here as well. If you'd like to ask me some questions, there's 3 different ways you can do that. The first one is, if you're on your screen, there's a chat box there where you can put something in the chat. You can do it that way. The second way you can do it would be to add the question in the right-hand side. You see there's a box, and that'll send me the question. Just put your first name. I will never use your last name if you have a question that you want to ask me. And you can put those questions in at any point during the webinar. You don't have to worry about it. I'll get to those at the end when I'm done. Or if you want to talk to me directly, you can hit *2 on your phone when we're done, and that will tell me that you want to raise your hand and ask me a question. So that's going to be your 3 ways to ask a question when we are done here. Like I said, if you have a question during the presentation, just put it in there and I'll get to those when I'm done. So I'd like to just give you, like I said, a quick overview, and then we'll send you that recording a little bit later. So let's get rolling. I'd like to get into it, as I said, right away. So what we're going to talk about today is ending your karmic contracts. So I want to explain what that means and how it works and give you an overview of what's going on right now, because this right now is an exciting time to make changes. A couple of things have happened, and you just want to be aware. At the end of last month, the end of March, we ended the month with a new moon right at the end of the month, and that rarely happens exactly on that day. The moon is always time of change. We have a new moon every month, but it just happened that March ended the month with a new moon. This past week, we had the holidays. We had Eid, Passover, Ramadan, depending on what you celebrate or what you believe in or how you follow. But the bottom line is those are also holidays of new, rebirth, ending, making changes, moving forward. And the end of this month, which will be the 30th of April, we also have a new moon solar eclipse. So again, the new moon 2 months in a row on the last day of the month, plus a eclipse. The solar eclipse is about external change. So this right now, that's the reason I wanted to do this at this time. This is a time to make changes. This is a time to move yourself forward. And one of the ways you're going to do that is by ending your karmic contracts. So the question, of course, is what is a karmic contract? What does that mean? Now, I wrote about this in my book, Karma Buster. And when I was studying karma and really learning about how it worked, the way I defined it was your karma is the blueprint for the emotional journey you came to experience in this lifetime. So everyone here has karma in the sense of we all came to have an emotional journey or an emotional experience. So this is something we chose before we got here. So that's what your karma is. And in the process of doing that, we actually created contracts so that we could interact with different people and have different people in our lives so they would help us have the emotional journey that we are here to have. So one of the things that's important as we go through this process and as we go through moving forward is when you start to get into trying to be logical and making sense of things and say, oh, why is this happening? Or, why is these things happening to me? Or how come I can't get a break? Or why do these? This is all things you don't want to do because you contracted for certain things to happen in your life. And you have contracts that you came to fulfill, so to speak, emotionally. I want you to think of it not as what you're doing, although there is part of that, but really what it comes down to is it's an emotional contract. It's what you came to do emotionally. So I want you to understand the karma that you're carrying, that we all have, is a blueprint for what you came to do in your life. So let's talk about the types of contracts that we're dealing with here. So one, basically your whole life is a karmic contract because you came here to have this emotional experience. So the first thing we think of is your mission and purpose. Why are you here? Now, on a broad stroke, you're here, again, as I said, to have this emotional experience, but your soul came to do certain things. So you might have come here, someone came here to be an artist, someone came here to be an accountant, someone came here to be a mother or a father or to have children or to have this experience, or someone came here to be someone who worked in certain causes. Maybe it was, helping children or whatever the case. So these are these things that are coded into your DNA, which is why there are certain things you have an affinity for, right? You say, wow, I always loved cooking. I always loved plants. I always loved animals. I always loved business. So those feelings, those skills, those desires are not there by mistake. That's part of your purpose, part of your mission. So if you say, well, I always loved I always learned hair cutting. Whatever it was. Now, here's what happens. When you're a kid, you may have these certain feelings, because when we're kids, we're not blocked off. We're kind of pretty open to say, well, I like this or I don't like, we're not as contaminated, so to speak, as we get when we get. So as a kid, I go out there and I just kind of say, wow, I love animals. I love butterflies. I love drawing. I love whatever it is. And then as we get older, we start to get into, oh, you can't do that. You can't work and do that. That's not something you should be doing. Hobby. You can't be a singer. You can't be. So that kind of takes us out of our purpose if we are not supported as kids. And a lot of us, of course, that happened, right? Because you said, well, I want to be a singer. And your parents said, no, you can't do that because you can't make a living being a singer or whatever the case. So the first thing we want to understand, we want to reconnect to that part of us, which is that special part that we have a desire to do that. And generally, when you have the desire, you will have the skill in order to do it. So if you want to be an artist or if you want to be, a chef or whatever the case, there are people who could go in the kitchen. My wife is like this, and in 10 minutes come out with a gourmet meal. Now she makes it look simplistic. I could never do it. It would be a catastrophic kitchen. There are people I've worked with in the music industry that can sit down and write a song in 10 minutes and 5 minutes. And so I got this idea, this is the melody, and boom. It's like, well, how did you do that? So again, these are skills that we have, and we have that mission and purpose. So that contract is kind of your big, this is why I'm here contract, this is what I'm here to do. And understand that not everyone fulfills their contract in that way. Not everybody does follow their path, or does not have the courage maybe, or does not have the circumstances to follow what they really came to do. And then you get to come back and try it again. So that's one part of it. But there are other contracts that I really want to focus on, and I want to give you that one because it gives you kind of the broad strokes of what we're talking about. But the other contracts that we have that are really impactful are the ones we have with other people, and those are the most powerful as far as the experience we have here emotionally. And the main one, of course, is going to be you have conscious experience. Now, again, I'm going to share information with you based on this work, which is that we selected our parents before we came because they contained the right DNA and the right skills and the right emotional code for us to have our experience. So you have a contract with them to have the emotional experience. So that emotional experience for some people is I selected, I know it's all, now I'm going to talk about things that are hard to understand in a sense of making sense, right? I'm not really concerned about making sense, and because that's not how this works. But let's say he came to say, I want to experience what it's like to be physically abused. Now, I know your first thought is, why would you pick that? The soul decided in this lifetime, I want to do it. I want to go through that experience. I want to go through the experience of being abandoned by a parent. I want to go through the experience of coming out of a broken home. I want to go through the experience of being in a loving family. Everything is different. So you selected your parents in advance, and you selected that DNA, and you have a contract with them to go through the emotion of that experience, whatever that may be. Now, generally, most of us are going to have a main emotional code here regarding the parents. So for me, I had a lot of abandonment in my energy field. My dad died when I was young. My mom was not there emotionally. I always felt very abandoned, very alone. That was a contract that I had with my parents when I got here. So that was something that I had to work through and get myself over. So you may have a feeling of abuse, unworthiness, whatever the case. One of these emotions are tied to your contract with your parents. And then you go through this lifetime having a relationship with them. And our goal is to deal with it and end the contract. But I'll get to that in a minute. Then we also have contracts with things, because it's the same thing. We're going to have relationships with our siblings that are going to be also powerful, because all the core family ones are very powerful, because those are going to be really connected to your deepest emotional journey that you came to have. So we're going to have siblings, depending on how many kids and relationships you have with your siblings. That's another contract. You also have relatives, especially those that were close to you growing up. For those of you that grew up with a lot of relatives around, that was part of it as well. And then, of course, we have our other relationships, which are going to be friends, romantic, and then we have, a lot of us will have a work relationship, right? I have friends that you have when you grow up. You have romantic relationships. We have relationships in business, could be partners, could be employees, people we work with, coworkers. So these are all these different contracts that we have. So I'm going to put them in degrees, right? So some of them are quick. Like, hey, I met with this person. They just kind of put me in a direction, but the relationship wasn't that long, but it was an important contract for me. But it wasn't meant to be a long-term relationship, right? That's certain ones. The ones with the family and the deeper relationships, those are going to be the most challenging. So what ends up happening is we grow up, we develop this system, which is our energy field, which is based on the emotional experiences we had as kids. Then we carry that energy forward, and our job going forward is to now deal with those emotions and those contracts, so to speak. So what happens is now I've got all this energy, I've got all these beliefs, I've got all these feelings, and I start to now send that energy out into the universe and create situations. And that's basically what's happening. Now, this is also happening, don't forget, with your parents, with your siblings, because these are the people, you're all together in this game. Everybody's here to have that game. So what ends up happening is these become cycles in your life. So you have cycles. Now, we all know this. We all have cycles. So one of the things that's good to do, if you haven't done it before, is kind of write down. I love to write things down because I feel like when I write it down and I look at it, it really gives me a context of where I'm at. So I'm going to say, I have a certain cycle. I have a cycle you'll have different cycles that will be positive, and you'll have different cycles that will be problematic. So we're trying to break the negative ones. So you're going to have cycles in your health. Do you have a lot of health problems? Do you have a lot of issues with health? That's one of your contracts as well. That came through your parents, and that came through how you grew up and how you feel about yourself. You manifested your issue with health problems. That could be it. You could have issues in your career or financial and say, whatever I was here to do. I had a lot of struggles. That was an area for me that was very difficult. I had a lot of problems early on, went through bankruptcy, struggled a lot, even though I was working really hard. That was a cycle that I was stuck in. I was stuck in a negative cycle in that regard. We also have cycles, of course, in our relationships. We're going to have cycles in our friendships. We're going to have cycles in our work relationships. We're going to have cycles in our romantic relationships. So you may say, I keep having the same type of situation, whether it's at work or with friends or with your health or whatever, and you just keep cycling around and around and around. Now, most people are they're caught on what we call the Karmic Wheel. So the Karmic Wheel means I have these emotional issues that I came here to deal with, and because a lot of people are not aware of it, right? Most people, when I talk to people out in the world, and I do a lot of corporate consulting as well, because I do sales training with, of course, using my energy principles, but I do corporate training and consulting. And I find that a lot of people, they're just trying to get through the week. They just say, hey, I just have to get to Friday, and then I'm going to pay my bills and start over again. So they're not aware, even though they may say, I see patterns and I see habits and I see certain things going on, but I'm not aware that this is an emotional cycle that I'm in. I'm not aware of it. I don't realize that I'm on this wheel. So our goal here in physical form as humans is to break, which is what my Karma Buster book was about, right? I want to break the karmic wheel. I want to get off the wheel. I don't want to keep doing the same thing. I don't want to keep having a bad relationship over and over again. I don't want to keep going bankrupt and struggling financially. I don't want to keep being sick, or I can't lose weight, or I'm never healthy. I don't want to keep, right? But people basically, again, they're not aware that this is what's happening. Now, the problem is for us as humans, what we tend to do is we look at it from the external, right? We look at it and say, for me, I'm working hard. I don't understand. I'm setting goals. I'm reading books. I'm going to seminars. I'm hiring people to work with me. Why is this not working? Because emotionally, I have a block that must be cleared, right? So that is going to be the issue. It's an emotional issue. So the karmic wheel is based on unresolved emotions that you're carrying within yourself. So that's why it's frustrating, because you're saying, hey, I did all these things. Like you see it with weight loss, right? I did all the diets and I keep doing all, and I'm never losing any weight, because it doesn't mean you shouldn't change your behavior. But if I don't emotionally deal with the issue, I can never get out of the cycle. I'll always default back to the emotion that is not clear. So I want to make that something that you focus on. It's not necessarily what you're doing. It's that emotional unresolved issue. So that's the wheel. So that's the wheel that we get stuck on. So it's a good idea to write down one day and say, hey, let me write down my patterns. Let me write down, this is what I'm seeing over and over again. And the way to really deal with it, which I'll get to later, but the way to really deal with this is you have to identify the emotion and deal with the feeling. You have to identify the emotion and deal with the feeling. That is the way to go forward. So without dealing with the emotion, you'll be forever trapped in this karmic wheel that we're trying to get off. So the family contracts, like I said, these are going to be the key, because all this deep karma that you have and all these deep issues and emotions that you're stuck on are part of the contracts that you have with your family that are not clear. So, and most people, they continue through life. They don't resolve the things. We have a lot of hang-ups in the family side, right? Well, it's, we have all the religion, we have all the different ideas that we grew up with. I'm not supposed to feel that way about my mother. I grew up Catholic. That's another whole story. We had a certain belief system or a certain way of looking at the world. And again, what that does is it distorts your ability to get to the feelings and understand what's really going on, because you're so busy trying to sort out all the things that you're supposed to be doing, or you're supposed to be the good daughter or the good son or the good husband or the good wife or the good whatever, and you're not dealing with the emotions that are underneath. So what we want to do is we want to get to, I'm going to keep saying this a million times until people get it, because this is just the way it works, and this is the way it worked for me. It was almost like, get to the feelings, get to the feelings, get to the feelings. This will be the key for you to go forward. So what we want to look at is you have to sit down, and this is one of the things I think is really great to do. It's a great exercise, is sit down, and you have to be honest to do this, is really sit down and say, what am I feeling about these people? And these people, I'm going to start with your family, because that's going to be your most powerful emotional anchor. And even if you have parents who have passed away, it doesn't matter, because you're still holding the energy. Even though they're not here anymore, the bottom line is the emotion that you're holding for them is still here. So what you want to do, and this is a great exercise, is sit down quietly. If you meditate, this will be something you can do a little bit easier, because you're used to getting into that quiet state, is basically say, what are you feeling? And I want you to remove the label. So what I mean by that is, I don't care if it's your mother, father, sister, brother, kids, I don't care who it is. You want to sit down and honestly say to yourself, how do I feel about that person? But I want to take the label off it, because with the label, I'll never get myself to the true feeling. Because the minute you bring, oh, that's my mother, I can't feel like that. That's my father, I can't feel like that. That's my kids, I can't feel like that. That's my brother, my sister, I shouldn't feel like that. The minute you do that, you block all of your energy, because now your mind got involved. It labeled the situation. It took the emotion out of it, and now you can't go forward. So what I'd like you to do, the more powerful exercise, is just see it as energy. So as we elevate, which is what we're doing now, we're moving into what I always call pure space. It's this pure, truthful, energetic, emotional space. So if I'm sitting in this pure space and I have this person in my life and I'm seeing it from a clear perspective and I have no labels on it, I can honestly sit there and say, this is how I actually feel. Now, again, it's not about judging that person as good, bad, right, or wrong. Right? It's not about that. It's not about saying, oh, they're good, bad. That makes them good or bad. It's not about any of that. It's just really simply about you dealing with the emotions that you have. And when you deal with those emotions, you start to release that negative energy. And you also start to see things much more clearly. But I can't see it clearly if every single time I'm going to block myself. So what people end up doing, and again, I've done it, we've all done it, is we start making decisions, and you have to say to yourself, how do I make my decisions? Do I make them based on conditions and beliefs, or do I make them based on the truth, which is how you really feel? So let's say, for example, you're having an issue with a parent. I'm going to use a parent as an example. I had a lot of issues with, as I said, my dad passed when I was young, but I had a lot of issues with my mother. And, I was the oldest boy and, supposed to be a certain way and supposed to take care of everybody and so forth. but I was starting to have a lot of issues, which is what brought me to, I believe, a lot of the work that I do now. And I was doing things on the identity I had, the conditions of the situation, and the beliefs that I had. So instead of saying, well, is this the best decision for me? Now, when I say that to you, this is the way you really start to elevate yourself. Because the way you elevate yourself is when you start making decisions that are best for you. Now, when I say that in the context of, I'm not looking to hurt somebody else, but I want to do what's best for myself. Now, if you're in a situation with family, which this could be difficult because families want to control you, they want to, in many cases, dictate what you're doing, or again, you've been conditioned to feel you're supposed to do certain things to be the good person. And what will happen is that same behavior that you're holding on to, like if you are a person who is a people pleaser because that's the way you grew up, you're going to do that with everybody. It started with maybe your mother or your father. Oh, I have to keep doing everything because that's what makes me good. I have to go out of my way and make sure I do everything for everyone else and not myself because that's what a good person does. See, these are beliefs, and now you make decisions based on those beliefs and those conditions. And what it does is it takes you out of your power and out of your true spirit, because your true spirit says, do what's best for yourself. Again, we're not assuming we're not hurting somebody. I don't want you don't want to do something and hurt somebody else. But hey, if I would prefer to do option A and go out with my friends, or option B and go to my mother's house for dinner when she told me the last minute to come over, but I go to option B and I don't do what's best for myself because I want to be the good person, every time you do that, you are not being true to your soul and you're keeping the contract going, right? So this is what ends up happening. So the first thing you have to do is you have to say, how am I making my choices and my decisions? Am I doing this because this is what I want to do, or do I feel guilty? Do I feel shame? Do I feel fear? If I don't do it, there'll be fear of loss, or people will be mad at me, or people will be upset with me. These are all the things that hold you in the contract. These are all the things that don't let you be free, because you keep doing it to appease everyone else instead of doing what's best for yourself. Now, obviously, when you do what's best for yourself, you're going to create some blowback, right? Because people are going to get upset. Because especially when I started doing this, when you've always been doing what everybody else wanted you to do, and now finally you're not doing that anymore, and this could be friends, this could be family, this could be any, or relationships that you're in, and you start to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in this role. I don't want to be in this environment. I don't want to keep doing this. So the key here for you is going to be to be honest. Be honest with your feelings. And again, there's no judgment. So, hey, how do you really feel about when you... So the easiest way to do it, the way I found that's really easy way to do it, is to just say, how do I feel when I'm around that person? Right? How do you feel when you're around that person? That tells you everything. Now, the other thing you'll do to trick yourself, we all do it, and again, whatever I'm telling you, I've already done it. Let's say you see somebody 10 times, and one time it's pretty good. What you'll tend to do, because you don't want to be honest, and again, because it's painful to say, wow, my mother's really not nice to me, or my father treats me poorly, or my kids don't treat me well, or my brother or my sister is very rude to me and they don't treat me well. So what ends up happening is we'll cherry pick that one time that it was pretty good and forget the other 9 when it was terrible, right? So you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest, and you have to say to yourself, okay, this is the truth. This is the truth. This is how I truly feel when I see this person. This is how they make me feel. So here's the deal. If you're not still appreciated, if you're bringing those types of feelings that we're having an exchange of love and forth, anybody else who's creating disruption to is going to be toxic. That's going to keep you in a bad space. Again, the honesty becomes important. Have the power of choice. This becomes a choice. Now, this is an area where people struggle, because when I say to them, well, you have to choose how you're going to go forward. And the first thing they'll say, oh, well, what am I supposed to do? That's my mother, that's my father. What am I supposed to not see them? What am I? I said, well, it stance for the situation. to manage the situation without being constantly disrupted or upset. And this could be any person in your life, because here's what will happen. You will bring in other people who, some of them will be siblings, your own kids, could be work people, could be your relationships, could be your friends, that will mirror those exact feelings that you got when you were growing up that you never resolved. So if you always felt unworthy, or if you always felt unappreciated, you will bring in people who will be the same. And that's the contract. The contract is, I'm going to keep bringing in these people because that's the energy that I never dealt with. So I have the power to choose who I want to be around. So now we get into what I want to focus on here for our last portion, is really ending the contracts. So how do you end it? So let's say, for example, you're in a bad situation, negative circumstance, anything, could be now, a lot of times it's easier to start without doing this and empowering yourself with outside people, because it's easier because the emotional attachment is not there. So it could be a work situation, could be a dating situation, it could be a friendship situation that's not working out. You could end those contracts a little easier because you're not as emotionally involved, as far as you don't have the depth of belief systems and feelings and guilt and all the different things you're supposed to do. So there's two basic ways that the contract will end. You end it, or the universe ends it for you. Now, we all know, we've all been in situations, whether it was jobs or relationships or friendships, that we knew were not working. I mean, listen, there's not a person, myself included, who you knew, hey, this is not working. And instead of ending it, I stay in it. And why do you stay in it? There's a million reasons, right? You don't want to go meet a new person. You don't want to go find a new job. You don't want to go, make new friends, whatever the case may be. But really part of it is, the main part of it is, I'm still holding on to the feeling of unworthiness, for example, and I'm comfortable feeling unworthy. So I keep to make me unworthy or unappreciated or unimportant, right? So that is what I can do. So in order to make an empowered decision, it's better for you to end it. Now, again, I'm not ending it in a negative way, right? I want to end it in a way that is an empowered decision for yourself. So let's say, it's funny, I just had a client I was working with, got to a point where I said, okay, this is not, we've gone as far as we can go. I knew this side was over. I probably dragged it out a little longer than I should have, that I had brought. I felt some loyalty, but I said, okay, I've got to end this, and I'm going to, give you my notice that I'm going to end this contract and move on. Now, in the past, I have been in that same situation, but I ended up being fired, let go, or whatever the case, because I didn't make the empowered decision. Now, what is the difference, and why is that important? Because the contract ended, but if I don't end it, it's not as impactful. Because if I end it, that means I made the empowered decision to say, you know what, this relationship, the situation is not working. I need to move on from here. If it ends in a different way, then in many cases, I never deal with the emotion, because I end up, let's say I've been fired many times, but you get fired, or the person breaks up with you, or you get in a fight with your mother or your father, and you walk out and you feel ashamed or you feel embarrassed, right? So now you didn't really take that situation in command, and you didn't resolve it. So what ends up happening is, when you make the decision, you have more power. Now, it doesn't mean you feel great. Everybody thinks, oh, this is great. You end the contract, you feel awesome, you're powerful, you decided what you were doing. Yes and no. So I had a situation with my family, with my mother years ago. We ended up not speaking a lot. It just got to a point of no return. It got to a point where I said, I can't do this anymore. So I said, I'm going to just pull my energy out of here, and this is going to go where it goes. And I failed. I felt guilty. I shame. You could have this with, again, your romantic relationships. You could have this with your children. You could have this in a business situation. So it doesn't mean just because you make an empowered decision, you don't feel some emotion about it. So you may feel those feelings of saying, you know what? Yeah, I made an empowered decision. I feel good about that, but I still, we're still human, right? I still feel bad about certain things. We are people, right? So we do feel that. But the important thing is, if I'm going to end the contract, I have to know, because some people, what they'll say to me is, oh, I broke up with that person, or I got that job and screw them. And they never actually resolved the feeling, right? They didn't resolve the feeling that actually brought them to that place. So you want to get to the point where you could say, I understand why this relationship has to end, right? Learn a relationship, and that person, no matter what you do, they are making you feel, and I've seen this with a lot of people, they're always making you feel bad about yourself. And it's like, wow, whatever I do, no matter how kind I am to them, no matter what I do for them, they never appreciate it. They don't give me any appreciation. This will go back to your childhood, right? This will go back to say, my mother never appreciated me. My father never appreciated me. I'm still holding that same emotional feeling. So now I keep repeating it. So let's say I say, well, this is a terrible situation. I want to get out, and I just quit. And I'm angry at that other person. Wow, that's the first boss I ever had. They treated me like crap. I'm going to go find something else. And here's what happens. Because you're holding that energy, you find the same thing or worse, because you haven't resolved the emotion. So I don't want you to think just because you walked out or it ended that in either case that you've moved forward, because a lot of times we haven't. We just kind of end and pick up a new cycle that's exactly the same. So this is stuff that you want to be aware of, because it's not just saying, okay, I'm going to get another job. It's easy to just say, I'll get a new job, but did you create a new job that was in alignment with how you want to feel, or did you just leave because you're upset and then create another problem? You know, it's the old frying pan into the fire story. So now what happens as I'm going through this process? So what happens next? Right now, I want to break the cycle, whether you decide to end the cycle or the cycle ends for you. Both are opportunities for you to heal, and both are opportunities for you to move yourself forward. Obviously, when you are aware enough and you realize this is how I feel in this space, right? How do you feel in that relationship? How do you feel working with that person? How do you feel dealing with your mother or father if they're still around? They're still causing you emotional pain. And you try to fix it. You try to make it work. You try, no matter what you do, it's still happening. There comes a point where you have to accept, I can't fix it, right? We can't fix everything. We're dealing with humans. We're dealing with people who, a lot of people never change their whole lives. And a lot of people are unreasonable, and you're unable to deal with them. And again, I'm not judging it or saying it's good or bad. It's just the way certain people are as they go forward. So the way we want to move ourselves here is, your goal is to understand the emotion, and that is the lesson that you are here to learn. So that's the way you're breaking the wheel. Once I got the lesson, I understand that this is the feeling that I never dealt with, of feeling appreciated. The person that I'm dealing with is a blessing, because any person that comes into your life that helps you feel a feeling, they're an angel for you. I know it sounds crazy, right? You say, how could it be an angel, a person who makes me feel terrible about myself? But the bottom line is, they helped you bring that emotion into your awareness so that you can end that contract and move on. So now you say to yourself, okay, I realize this is the feeling I don't want, but it's my mother. How could I not talk to my mother? How could I not talk to my father? How could I not talk to my brother? How could I not talk to my kids? It doesn't matter who it is. The bottom line is, if you get to a point where you say, I cannot, it's not workable, you're well served to pull your energy out. Now, the bottom line is, it doesn't mean that's easy to do either. It's an emotion, even though it's an empowered step, right? It's an empowered step, but it's still an emotional step, because you're still doing something that at your core really is sad. It's sad to say, wow, I can't get along with this person. And it doesn't mean who's right and wrong and who's good and bad. The bottom line is, they're putting you in an emotional space that is just negative for you. And I will tell you that if you keep holding yourself in that space, you will just keep yourself on that wheel, and you'll keep cycling around and around and around and around, and you're never going to end. You're just going to keep doing it over and over again. So these are key elements of us getting forward, is to say, I understand the way the person was making me feel, or that situation, and I want to deal with that emotion. So, of course, the question everybody asks me, how do I deal with the emotion? The way you deal with it is, and I have many courses and programs to do this, but for the purpose of our conversation, the simple answer is this. You deal with the emotion by allowing yourself to feel that pain. So you want to feel the pain of the unworthiness. You want to feel the pain of, wow, that I feel that person made me feel unimportant, or that person was potentially maybe was even berating you. And that's something that made you feel tremendous shame or embarrassment. These are feelings that we want to allow ourselves to grieve and feel. And as you do that, you release that energy. So that energy gets released. So now you start to shift because your desires to feel unworthy, unimportant, unappreciated start to go away. And that's the beginning of really how we end the contract. So the way we want to go forward here is you have to remember we're always seeing a lot of different people and we're encountering all different people. Now you have to also remember that we're attracting people based on our energy and our belief system and how we feel. And we're constantly tweaking it. We're constantly working on it. We're constantly trying to be more aware of what's going on. So the first thing you want to do, be very aware of what you are attracting in, right? What am I bringing in? How are people responding to me? How are people acting towards you? What kind of people are coming into your life? Are they supportive? Are they positive? What kind of people are coming around you? What do you see yourself? Who's around you? It's very, energy is very scientific. It's frequency, it's vibration. So if you're vibrating good energy, you're going to be attracting positive people and good people and people who like you and people who appreciate you and people who see you for the beautiful person that you really are. When we're in these contracts with parents who made us feel bad about ourselves our whole lives, think about it. If I'm holding energy deep down that I feel like I'm unworthy or I'm never going to get anywhere or I'm not smart or whatever, I'm constantly bringing people in that's what they see. Because that's what you're putting out. And they're just reinforcing that old belief, which holds you in the karmic wheel, which is what we want to get off. So that's the first thing, is that awareness. Hey, how are people responding to me? Now, the other thing is be aware, because a lot of us, I know I struggled with this for a long time. When people were nice to me, I kind of had a hard time with it because I was almost like, well, why are these people like really telling me, you have great work, you're smart, your stuff is great. Why are they telling me that? Like, I was almost like I couldn't believe it because I never heard it before. So again, you have to remember, when you don't feel that feeling from your parents, it's hard to go out and then say, yeah, well, parents told me this. Wouldn't they tell me the truth? Kids, that's what we're looking for, right? We think our parents are telling us or giving us the truth, which in reality, they're just passing on their dysfunction onto us, which is part of what life is about. But the bottom line is, when you start hearing positives for the first time, or you start saying, wow, a person really appreciated me, they really saw who I was. They really, I remember when this first started happening to me, when people really appreciated what I was doing and would be positive and send me emails and so forth. And I was just kind of like, wow, I really am good at this. I was almost like I had to convince myself for a while that, yeah, you're good at this. This is what you do. Right? Or it's like someone who's an artist who finally becomes successful, or a musician, or in business, or whatever the case. You say, wow, people are finally seeing it. And we see this with a lot of people, right? Where they say later in life, they finally got to a certain emotional space, and that's when they became really successful, because they finally got to the place where they could appreciate themselves on some level and get there. So that's what we want to do. So we're going to tune into our emotions. We're going to adjust as you go. When you see people, right, you're going to make adjustments, because you're going to say, ooh, okay, I need to tweak where I'm focusing my energy. Because you have to remember, you want to focus now on bringing in people and situations and circumstances that are positive, uplifting, and helping you grow. I'm not interested in negativity. I'm not interested in people who are going to make me feel bad. I'm not interested in, people who are going to keep holding me in a cycle that I don't want to be in. One of the important things that you want to do as you are more aware and you know your karmic contract, hey, I know I'm in a contract where I keep attracting people who don't understand me and appreciate me and make me feel good. I'm in that space. The minute you see, now it's like your radar is better. Because those people are around. You have to remember, this is the world we're in. It doesn't mean you're never going to encounter one again. So you have to be sharp and say, oh, okay, wait a minute. that person reminds me of of somebody or something or a feeling, trust your feelings, that I don't want in my life anymore. And you want to walk away quickly. I don't want to get into it. The minute you see, trust your inner self, trust your inner guidance, and accept the truth that is in front of you. One of the worst things we do is we refuse to accept the truth, right? This is what's really happening. My mother is abusive. My father is abusive. That is the truth. And until you accept that truth, you will never be able to go forward because you're going to keep making up a story or trying to protect that person or saying they didn't mean it or whatever you're going to do. And again, I'm not talking about holding judgment on these people, but you have to be honest in order to go forward and say, that is how they treated me. That is the truth. I must accept the truth. When you don't accept the truth, you get stuck and you stay on the wheel because you keep looking, like I said earlier, for that 1 out of 10 times when it was okay. And you forgot the other 9 times. And if I said to you, if you met somebody off the street and you saw them 10 times and 9 times was horrific and 1 time was good, do you want to see them again? What would be your honest answer? If they're not attached to you in some way here in mother, father, sister, family. I don't think there's a person in the world who would say, yeah, it's worth seeing them 10 times to have 1 good experience. I don't think anybody would want to do that. So that's the honesty that you have, and that's the acceptance within yourself to know that this is where you want to be. So this is a good sign when you start to notice. First, there are many good signs. One is your awareness to the situation, right? One will be, I'm aware. I know what my cycles are. I have to deal with the feelings I have toward my parents or growing up that I'm still holding on to. And I'm aware that now I want to start attracting different people. I want to end the contract. I am choosing to end the contract. And that is something that you will empower yourself to do. And as you do that, you will start to create a much different life for yourself. Now, again, there are emotional pains with this. I always like to be honest, right? The bottom line is when you end contracts, especially with family members, these are very emotional. You're going to feel, I felt shame, guilt, failure, all these feelings that I had to go through. That was part of my contract with my parents. That was what I came to feel. That was the feeling that they gave me, and that was the feeling I wanted to finish so I could get off the wheel. But if I kept staying in there, it never would have ended. So there's 3 basic outcomes that I want to kind of come full circle here to come back to, just to finish up our session here, is there are 3 outcomes with your contract. One is you end the cycle. Now, this cycle could end, like I said, you could end it, the universe could end it, it could end many different ways. Now, the other thing is this, just because somebody dies or passes away does not mean that the cycle is over if you're still holding the energy. So don't think that, I'm waiting for my mother to die or my father to die because then it'll be over. It will not be over if you are still holding on to the emotion and the energy of that situation. So the first one is I end the cycle, which means I have emotionally addressed the issues of the contract, the cycle, the karmic wheel. I've addressed those issues. I've accepted the truth. I deal with those emotions and I move forward. The second one is you continue the cycle, which a lot of people do because they can't do it. They say to me, I can't do it. I can't address this situation. I can't not see this, my mother or my father or whatever it is, even if it's for a while, if they don't know where it will go, they just stay in the cycle. And if you stay in the cycle, I will tell you this, from years of doing this, it is guaranteed to get worse because now the cycle just keeps getting worse and worse and worse because your soul wants you to break the cycle. And by you not breaking the cycle, it will continue to escalate the events to a point where it'll end one way or another. But that could be really a catastrophic ending in many different ways. So you really don't want to keep the cycle going, although a lot of people will do it. But I'm just telling you, the final one, which is rare, is basically you restructure the relationship. Now, there are cases where people, and I will tell you, I've done this, like I said, for a long time. There are some cases, they're not, I would not say this is certainly not the rule. This will be the exception, where you're able to go through some truth, move through some emotion and some deeper feelings, and you're able to then restructure and now generally speaking, it's hard to get to a place of high connection after all this has gone down, but you can at least sometimes have a civil relationship. Sometimes there are times when it can be rebuilt, but again, that's kind of the long shot. But I do put it out there because it is possible. You know, it's nice to think that's possible, but again, don't get yourself caught up in the idea that that's happening if it isn't. Because the other person, in order for you to restructure the relationship, the other person has to be willing to take some responsibility and put some energy and effort into it. So if they're not, then that will not happen. That's not going to happen. Because it can't just be you. And this is an important part of this experience, right? You can't be the only one trying to fix it, right? If the other person is not willing to take some responsibility and say, yeah, I understand my part in it and I'm willing to work on it, it's kind of like what happens when couples go for couples counseling. If they're having problems, both parties have to be open to taking responsibility and putting effort in. If that is not the case, the restructuring does not happen. So those are three different outcomes that you have. The goal, of course, for yourself at the highest level would be to make empowered decisions and you end the cycles and understand why you're ending it from an emotional position, and then you can break the wheel and then start to create what you really want. And that's really the goal that we have as we go forward. As I said earlier, this is a great time to do this because we're moving into a lot of emotion and we're moving into a lot of shifting that's taking place right now. So it's a great time to start new things, break away from the old, let go of the past, get out of these old feelings and emotions that you've been dealing with your whole life, and start to reboot yourself into a place of self-love and caring and taking care of yourself. That's really where we want to go as we go forward. So I hope you found this to be helpful. You know, like I said, I'm trying to give you a good overview of what you can do and how you can start moving forward to start breaking these cycles and start identifying them and letting them go. As I said earlier, I love to write things down and kind of give myself a visual of what's going on and put it together from that perspective. So I'm going to go to some questions and see if anybody has any questions for us here today. I got a couple of coming in right now, some in the chat and some in the other side. If you want to speak to me, like I said, hit *2. Before we do that, if you'd like to find out more about my work, you could go to joenunz.com. That's my main website. I also do a monthly webinar, which is on the first Saturday of the month. We call it Spiritual Saturdays. That one will be coming up on May 7th. You can go to spiritualsaturdays.com for that one. And I also have a membership program that actually includes that call as well, which is loaded with information. There's a 15-day free trial, and that one is at highergroundnow.com. So a couple of different ways you can connect with me, but all that info, again, is on my main Joe Nunz site, and I will, again, take a look at that. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'm going to email you later the link to this, and if you have questions, you can certainly get those over to me as well. So let me go through in the chat and see what we got. E. Cruz, I feel forgiveness has helped me make peace with my karma. Yes, that is a great thing, which we didn't even have a chance to get to that. I have a whole program on forgiveness. Forgiveness is, of course, the end of the rainbow. When you finally get to the point where you've gotten through those negative feelings, then you can get to forgiveness, and that's when you really get to a high place of healing. For tonight, again, that's another whole area to get into to get to the forgiveness. Tonight was more just getting you in track, but that is a great point. Also, when I take responsibility for my feelings, I change my vibration. The unwanted energy goes away on its own. So yeah, so basically what ends up happening is when you take responsibility for your feelings, you obviously elevate your awareness, and then you want to make sure that the key here is so that you feel your feelings. Okay, so Joan has a question here. What is the best way to deal with negative feelings? So the bottom line is, we see it as negative and positive. In higher vibration, we just see it as a feeling. But in us as humans, everything is yin yang, right? So we have the positive, negative. So the best way to deal with it is, Joan, you want to identify what the feeling is. And what I mean by that is, what people do is they say, I'm angry, I'm upset. But that's not the feeling. So the first step in dealing with your feelings is to really identify what it is that you are feeling, right? I'm angry, but why am I angry? What am I feeling underneath the anger? I'm feeling, unloved. I'm feeling unimportant. I'm feeling incompetent. What is it that I'm actually feeling? Now, once you know what that feeling is, you want to go through the process of allowing yourself to feel that. And again, I have courses that I take people deeper in to show you how to do that. But to get started, first identify the feelings and then allow yourself to feel the pain. When you feel the pain, the feeling dissolves. So that, of course, is a great one to go forward. So we have another one from E. Cruz, which is we can thank our parents or whomever for helping us work out our karma and wish them well. They show us what we need to work on. Yeah, so your parents, like I said, you selected your parents before you came, and they were there to help you have your karmic roadmap. So they are to be thanked in certain ways, but we also have to deal with the negative feelings we have toward them. We will have anger. We will have certain feelings toward them that we have to flush out to go forward. So that's, again, going to be an important part of our process as we continue. Again, very excellent point. But again, we want to thank them on one side, but I have to still deal with the negative and the anger, the upset that has been caused on the other side. So Ann S., I lost my job 2 weeks ago, scared and sad. How do I make sure I attract the money and something I am good at and will be appreciated at instead of a sneaky, narcissistic boss? There's a lot of narcissism. That's a really negative one. So let me get to that one as far as going into that. So what you want to do, Ann, here's a couple of things I can help you get through this one, right? So you lost your job. So the first thing is, how did you feel at that position, at that job? It's good to know those feelings because that's something you want to make sure that you say, I don't want to attract this again, and deal with the emotion. See, if you don't deal with those feelings and you want to see where they come from, because they're going to come from your parents, right? So you want to look at that and say to yourself, they're going to come from your parents, right? So those are going to come from your parents, okay? And look for those feelings. Okay, what are those feelings? Emily, I do have your question. I'll get to it. I see you in the chat, but I did see it in the other side as well. I'm going to do the chat ones first. So first thing, Ann, is deal with the feelings of the job you had, because your soul knew to get you out of there, right? You say you lost your job, but really your soul got you out because you didn't quit. You should have probably quit. I've done that a million times where I didn't quit and I ended up getting booted out. And I used to be in my egoic state and say those people were jerks and I'm going to get a better job. But I was in negative energy and got a worse job. So now or a worse situation. So now what you want to do is focus on what do you want to create? How do you want to feel? Feel. This is the key. How do you want to feel in the new position? Okay? How do you want to feel, and what kind of people do you want to be around? What do you feel you're worth? See, you're going to attract the money based on what you feel you're worth. What do you feel your value is? And you have to be honest. And again, this requires some quiet sitting time and be able to just kind of sit there and say, think about asking for a certain amount of money and then say, how will I feel when I ask for that amount of money? Right? That is saying here, I know something old is coming up, but I can't figure out and definitely don't want it again. So Ann, so your main thing is going to be to deal with you have to work on getting to those feelings, okay? Getting to the feelings that you have in this job. If you write them down, you'll be able to start writing them down. That's going to be the best way to flush them out. And then you can start identifying where they came from. Like I said, I have energy clearing programs. I'll send that to everybody in the email with a discount code. If you want to do this at home on your own, I do have a program for that to go into all the process, which we don't have time to do right now. Lisa, hi, Joe. A pattern of emotion in several areas of my life is feeling jealous of other women or others getting special treatment at work. I know the root is my dad leaving my mom for another woman when I was a kid, so I should feel the pain and jealousy to break the contract. Well, basically, so what's happening is your jealousy is coming from the feeling, right? So the feeling of, it's really how your father made you feel is probably the core of it, even though you're saying it happened with your mom, right? Even though he left your mom for another woman, the idea is what the feeling or pattern that you have is you're jealous of somebody else. And when you're jealous, you're in a very low vibration of energy, by the way. So the idea is to say, forget about it. It's not about everybody else. It's really about how to get into the feeling that you have. So what is the feeling? Jealousy is going to be kind of that, again, you're jealous because you want something in the physical world that you're not getting. But you want to go underneath, Lisa, go underneath the jealousy. How does it really make you feel about yourself? That these people are getting something that you think you should be getting. And that will help you identify what it is that you're really feeling. That's going to be a key for you to go forward. So take a look at that idea as far as saying, I'm jealous, but why? What do I feel? So I'll give you an example. I had a guy, it's funny how these stories back. He said, thank you. You kind of triggered a story. I worked with a guy many, many years ago. I was in New York. And one of his friends was very successful. And he was pretty successful himself, basically. If you looked at him, he was doing well. But his friend was like super successful, a guy he knew a long time from when he was younger. And, one day when I was doing a lot of coaching, we were doing a session and he was ranting on and this guy, and he's, I can't believe it. And he's building a big house and he's ranting. And I said, this is supposed to be what are you so upset about? And, finally, first he kind of course, told me all his stories. I don't think he should be doing that. Why should he have that big? I said, well, that's just your own ego. What do you really feel? And he said, it makes me feel like a loser. So his real feeling was the jealousy that he had toward his friend was really about him feeling like a loser because he didn't just appreciate what he was successful in his own. He had a very nice lifestyle. He had kids. He had a family. He had a nice house. He wasn't like he was doing poorly, but he compared himself to this person. And his real feeling was, I feel like I failed and I feel like I'm a loser. And that was the feeling. And he projected, the jealousy is projection. You're projecting your feelings on outside instead of dealing with your own pain. So that, Lisa, would be a good exercise, is to say, what is under the jealousy? What is the feeling under the jealousy that you're really not dealing with? And that'll help you break that cycle. Once you break the jealousy, because the bottom line is anything in the physical world is fleeting, right? It comes, it goes. Money comes, money goes, this goes, that goes. The bottom line is the feeling of jealousy means I'm in a third dimensional space. I'm in a 3D space and I'm holding myself hostage there. So get out of that space and get into the feeling, and that'll help you break that one. So that'll be a good one. And you can email me. I'm not sure about that question about the program, and we'll see if you have it, but you'll have to email me and I'll help you figure that out. Okay, now let me go into my Q&A. I got a couple of questions in here as well. My friend Kevin, Joe, you can email me if you don't want to address this question. Marina and I just had a blow up this weekend in our house with a family member out of nowhere. We did not even know we upset them. They exploded and would not listen or accept our apologies. They went on to extreme ending of the relationship. Done. Walked out. Related to what you said, we didn't end it. Do we need to go back to them and say, we are ending it, even though they said we're done? No, not necessary. You didn't do anything wrong. That was probably a relationship, Kevin, and you and I know each other for a long time. That was probably a relationship that needed to end that you didn't end, so it just ended that way instead. And it doesn't mean, if they wouldn't accept your apology or they don't want to talk to you, here's what's also happening now, and this is a great thing to bring up at this point, is these relationships these vibrations can no longer interact. So if you're in a higher energy and a higher awareness of vibration and somebody's in a lower vibration, what's happening right now is these two energies are having a really hard time really staying together. So sometimes they don't even know why they're doing it. They just, for some reason, realize I can't. This has happened to me, my wife. It's happened to all of us. I have friends that I've had my whole life. I've had friends for a long time that I'm just saying our energies are no longer aligned. And the relation, now sometimes hopefully not a blowout, but sometimes it just ends, right? It just kind of fizzles because the energies can no longer be together. So no, not necessarily, doesn't mean you did anything wrong unless you feel like you did something wrong. But it sounds to me like it was just something that if you really search your feelings, then, and you can email me as well, Kev, but if you really search your feelings, it sounds like that was something that should have ended a while ago. And I've got Emily, my friend Emily in California. I have had karmic contracts broken externally, as I heard someone describe it. My energy had been leveled, and my job could no longer be in alignment with my vibration. Okay? My question is, how can we know that we have completely broken the contract? Okay. Great question, Emily. That's a good one for us to end on here tonight because that's a terrific question. So the bottom line is that we know we broke the contract when the whole thing stops. And what I mean by the whole thing is when you see that you're no longer repeating the cycle. So when you go into another position or you go into another job, whatever the case may be, or you go into another relationship or you start getting healthier, there are people that I've worked with that as we clear their energy, they just started to get healthier. Now, they weren't put on a diet or told what to do. Your internal desire of your soul says you no longer need to do this. And you start to move in a direction that is in alignment with your higher vibration. So that's how you know, oh, I'm attracting different situations. I'm having different people come into my life. The other part of it is you will feel, and this is an important way to end this tonight, which is you will feel a feeling of more self-love, but it's not egoic. You feel like I love myself. I know I'm special. I know I'm here to share my gifts with the world, whatever they may be, in whatever capacity that looks like. But when you feel that feeling, everything else kind of falls into place here in the 3D world. So the bottom line is the best barometer, and I always call it my daily report card, is when I go out into the world, and I love to go out into the world because I think it's important, and I love to meet people in person. People say to me, why do you want to meet people in person? I said, well, why do I not want to meet? This is the way the world was before, right? We met people in person. But the bottom line was that you are, and that's a good way, Emily, to describe it, right? Said you had leveled up or up level, right? You leveled up. Your vibration shifts up. So when your vibration shifts up, you no longer want to be around negative people. You no longer attract, and truthfully, you don't attract them. You'll start seeing them. As we go higher and higher, and as you break the contract, you'll see that your vibration repels the negative and just brings in the positive. And you'll notice it more and more. So just be aware and listen. We're all human. There could always be days or times when something could slip through, but you'll identify it very quickly and you'll be able to get out of it really, really fast. So that is something that you will notice as you go forward. Your awareness is critical. The more aware you are, the easier it's going to be for you to do this and move forward. So I got to tell you, these are outstanding questions. I want to thank everybody so much for being here and asking me these. If you have any other questions, I know some people are going to get this as a recording. You can certainly email me. I'm going to send you an email later with my info. And if, again, you weren't able to get on live or you thought of something later, you can certainly take a look at how you could go forward and how you can continue to move your energy forward. I want to make sure I'm here to help you to do that. But I want to thank everyone for your time and your energy. Great questions. Again, keep putting love out there. Keep being in the love space and be aware and be in acceptance. Make sure that you empower yourself to remove these negative forces from your life. We are living in a world here in the physical world where it's a yin-yang, third dimension. It's a positive, negative world. It's designed that way. So this is the way it is. So our job is to get around high vibration people who love and appreciate us. We love and appreciate them. And then you start to really take off. So may you be blessed. Have a fantastic, fantastic day. Enjoy the solar eclipse coming up on the 30th. Be tuned in. That's going to be another great time to elevate, and we're going to keep moving forward. So I love you all. May you be blessed. We'll see you soon.